We weathered the storms, but we stood our ground. We did not back down. We had the conviction to guide us, and we had the courage to lead. We made promises. We made promises to the people of Florida, and we have delivered on those promises. And so today, after 4 years, the people have delivered their verdict. Freedom is here to stay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis delivering a victory speech after his massive win over Democratic challenger and former Republican Governor Charlie Crist last night, helping Republicans deliver a resounding mandate in the Sunshine State. Senator Marco Rubio also squarely defeated his challenger, Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings.
DeSantis' decisive victory only stands to ignite further speculation about a 2024 presidential run and potential face-off between the rising GOP star and former President Donald Trump. And while Trump admitted to personally voting for DeSantis in this year's election, it seems the former president is less than pleased about the prospect of having to fight for the Republican nomination in 2024.
Ron is a person, I've always had a decent relationship with him, but when I endorsed him, he was gone. He was not going to be able to even be a factor in the race. And as soon as I endorsed him, within moments, the race was over. I got him the nomination. He didn't get it, I got it, because the minute I made that endorsement, he got it. Then he ran, and he wasn't supposed to be able to win. I did 2 rallies. We had 52,000 people each one, and we ended up, he won. And I thought that he could have been more gracious, but that's up to him.
In comments to the Wall Street Journal yesterday, Trump added, quote, "If I did run, I will tell you things about him that won't be very flattering. I know more about him than anybody other than perhaps his wife, who is really running his campaign." Whew. Okay, so before we get into the Trump of it all, and he kind of sucks the energy out of this conversation, or redirects the conversation to where there is, frankly, quite a lot of energy, because Trump knows how to entertain, if nothing else. What do you think happened in Florida? Is it that something about the base in Florida yielded a more decisive victory for Republicans? Is it the fact that Latino voters maybe care more about inflation than some of these other issues? Do they just run good campaigns in the state?
Whatever it is, you have to credit it. It's worked. Ron DeSantis was very successful. Republicans had their best aspect of their night. It was not actually a very good night overall, but in Florida, it was a good night. The red wave was, I guess, just a hurricane that made landfall in Florida and then petered out before it got anywhere else, to use a really kind of offensive metaphor. I wonder, I don't know if you raised this or someone raised this, it might have been you, how much we're seeing, if we're seeing any migration, people very fed up with lockdowns or crime or critical race or whatever it was, leaving places like New York, Michigan, et cetera, heading to Texas and Florida. Maybe the Republican base is going to have the problem that I think the Democratic base has to some extent, that they're disproportionately concentrated in a couple cities. Republicans are going to be disproportionately concentrated in Florida, which is just really becoming a red state. So that could be a factor. But no question that Ron DeSantis is a star. It is a Republican star, beloved by the base and conservative media, and clearly has enough appeal to swing voters or independents or whatever you want to call him, to make him a really compelling force. So great night for him. He won Miami-Dade County. He helped win some other down ballot races. So really good for DeSantis. And I think if there was any doubt in his mind that 2024 is going to be his year and he should go for it, this should remove all doubt.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting this is a little bit of an indictment of the Democrat strategy here. They ran a former Republican in an effort to try to out Republicans in a red state. That did not work out for Crist. Someone noted that he has now ran and lost as a Republican, an independent, and a Democrat. And Val Demings was one of these top cop-style candidates, a la Kamala Harris, except that she didn't ever even pretend to be a progressive aggressive prosecutor, leaned in on the kind of I am tougher on crime, the Republicans shtick that Joe Biden has been doing since the summer of 2020. Well, I just say since the 1994 crime bill, and it didn't seem to yield results. So I'm curious whether Democrats will make different decisions about what might turn out voters in a state where they already have a real Republican and maybe don't need a Republican light.
Yeah, could be. Clearly, it didn't do them any favors. I'm not sure any other Democrat could have. Maybe they could have fared better. I don't know. But you're right to say that strategy didn't work.
Well, it's interesting. We were
Charlie
talking,
Crist is not a good candidate.
Right.
It's just
right. Well, we were talking a little bit a while ago about how abortion outperformed Democrats in a lot of these states, and I still remember how
the pro-choice position.
The pro-choice position, and how a $15 minimum wage outperformed Democrats and Republicans in the state of Florida in 2020.
And DeSantis, a savvy political operator, hasn't run on banning abortion. I think has kept his conversation to maybe a cutoff in the 14 or 15 weeks period, which that is a policy I think you can get away with. Mm-hmm. You clearly can't get away with the ban abortion. It just turns off too many people in the middle that Republicans are going to need to win. All right, now we should turn to Trump.
Let's talk about it.
Look, we are heading for an epic clash because Trump has given every indication that he's going to announce perhaps soon. I think this would, for a rational political actor, this would suck the wind out of their sails a little bit because the candidates that he helped get the nomination, your Dr. Oz's, other Doug Mastriano's, people of that nature did not do well. Herschel Walker, it's L after L after L. Mm-hmm. We don't know the outcome of Georgia, but Kemp, easy win. Mm-hmm. Herschel Walker in this fight for his life. So it's not a good showing for Trump, but we've known this over and over again, and there's been no way to make Trump exit. Republicans' leadership just keeps hoping he'll just gracefully exit.
Well, and in
Trump's
defense, he also picked DeSantis. As we saw in the leading clip, he also chose DeSantis. I mean, what do you make of this argument?
I don't know. It's kind of the idea that DeSantis could not have DeSantis went from nothing to everyone in moments. It's a little. I think that's a little.
Well, look, I do think there's something to the idea that DeSantis has benefited from not being forced to kind of define himself on the public stage, in part because he did come up as a Trump candidate. Yeah. And although, as we've learned from the Pennsylvania race, debates clearly don't matter, I think some people were surprised how less effective he came off in the debate with Crist, despite Crist not being anybody's kind of Obama-style rhetorical star here. And so it is, I think, an outstanding question whether or not DeSantis will be able to stand on his own on the national stage the way that Trump has obviously been able to do.
Yeah.
And I also wonder what you think of this argument people have been making that the outcomes here, the red wave being averted, as it were, is in part because Donald Trump reared his head campaigning in states like Pennsylvania in a way that might have reminded folks that Dr. Oz was a Trump candidate and that some Republicans are just over the idea of Trumpism. Independents that were breaking for Republicans last month broke for Democrats this month. Do you buy that rationale for what happened with independent voters to cause the red wave to be more of a trickle?
I mean, frankly, I do. Look, there's no question that Trump is still very, very popular within the Republican Party, that he has a base of hardcore support. I don't want to underestimate his strengths by any stretch of the imagination. He commands an almost unfathomable, unprecedented amount of loyalty from millions of voters. He has a hold over the Republican Party that no former candidate failed to win re-election presidential candidate has ever had over the party. It's truly remarkable, and that gives him a lot of power. But it's a primary power. It's a within the Republican Party power. He is very unpopular outside that segment of the base. He's extremely unpopular, obviously, with Democrats. Maybe any Republican would be, but he's not particularly popular with the independents. The slivers of voters we're fighting over in these important battleground states. Maybe it's not a lot of people, but it can be decisive. We're seeing how it can be decisive with people like Fetterman winning by just a few points. Georgia going to a runoff. Different Arizona candidates could have done better. The former Doug Ducey was the current governor of Arizona. More moderate, you probably wouldn't classify him as moderate, but he's not Trumpy whatsoever, not an election denier, very popular. He had some interest in running. think he very well could have won. We don't know. Who knows? But would have done better than Blake Masters probably. Didn't even want to get in the race because he had such a feud with Trump over, he would refuse to do the election denial thing. That was the same case with Sununu, could have run in New Hampshire, the popular governor there. We've seen that popular Republican governors who didn't, like Kemp, like Youngkin, who have not had to take kind of election craziness positions, can win, can absolutely win.
Yeah.
And Trump is punishing them for that. So that's the rub, and it's gonna be fun to see how this develops.
I won't hate watching it.
I won't either. And we'll enjoy discussing it afterward. More Rising after this. Stay with us.